There's a formula we can follow to see what different Logia abilities say about their users in the story of One Piece. Zoans are said to be drawn to specific users, and maybe that's because there's something more sentient about the possession they use to give people powers. But a big part of One Piece is that there is some fate that Luffy uses so he can afford to save the world while being self-centered. And people who don't have Zoan fruits end up embodying the abilities of those fruits perfectly. I should know, I went to Japan and ate the op fruit, which tasted delicious. So let's go through every Logia ability in the series in order and see what hidden meanings they have for the story and the characters that use them. So starting with the Smoke fruit, this is the first Logia we see, and it's used by Smoker. Smoke is a fitting element for the first recurring Navy antagonist that we see in the series, especially considering he chases Luffy into the Grand Line and almost prevents him from getting there, because smoke is something that suffocates people. The idea of a Logia is that you are finding strength becoming an element of nature, so you're relying on part of the status quo of the universe, becoming invincible through it, taking advantage of it, and contributing to it, which is why it's popular with Marines. The exception with Smoker is that he's hanging out in Logetown to hold upcoming pirates back and keep them from getting stronger by starting their careers following Roger's footsteps in the Grand Line. So, as our first serious Marine antagonist, it's fitting he has a Logia, and then also, by preventing fresh pirates from reaching the Grand Line, he's there to suffocate people and snuff out their potentials. Now, I know I just said they're popular with Marines, but there's a reason the next two Logias we see are used by pirates, and both reasons do tie back to the Marines. Crocodile is the first. Sand is old crushed up rock that becomes its own element in the non-scientific sense, which washes up on the shores of islands and covers unbearably dry environments. Some deserts are known to exist on top of ancient civilizations and cover various special ruins and locations. So the idea of the element is that as stone wears down, it washes ashore and or drifts into these spots where it dries things out and floods kingdoms with historical things of value. Well, chicken or egg, but you get the idea. Crocodile is an old, scarred, and spiteful pirate who used to be rebellious and dream of becoming the pirate king, but now works for the same organization as the Marines, and also secretly buries a kingdom in a conspiracy to find their ancient weapon of mass destruction as a new and much crueler way of taking over the world. Crocodile is our big example of a major pirate who becomes washed up and much more sinister, dragging the rest of the world down with them as they satisfy their own desires in less promising ways, which would be a trend for pirates that failed to accomplish their dreams. He's a mean Luffy who gave up and failed, because reality is unstoppable and breaks everybody down over time, until self-centered people weaponize what they still have to make everybody else worse off too. So Crocodile comes from how the universe breaks people and things down, which is why his body turns into sand to survive attacks, and he breaks other stuff down using up their resources to take advantage of doing that, which is why he can create and control more sand or just dry things out directly. The next Logia user we come across is Ace, Luffy's older brother. Ace is a product of Gold Roger, and he represents a typical pirate who's still doing their thing and sailing the seven seas. Flames consume other materials, so the Flame Logia is the devil fruit that represents humanity's response to rigid systems that confine them. And at first, this is given to Ace because he represents the pirate era that Gold Roger brought into existence. Humanity's ambitions reject the status quo when it's limiting. So unlike the other materials, the Flame Fruit is tied to resistance against whatever every other Logia stands for. And Ace specifically has it because he is Gold Roger's son, which, as the Flame user, he also fittingly rejects. So once again, fitting the trend of Logias, as the quintessential pirate of the new era, Ace rejects and goes against the status quo so his body can turn into flames to withstand attacks. And he uses his power as a pirate to reject his origin as a representative of the new pirate era, who is Gold Roger's son, so he lives for himself and finds family in Whitebeard, Gold Roger's rival, which is why he has the ability to create and control flames. Just like Crocodile, his body can turn into an element because that's what he draws strength from, and then he creates and controls that element because he uses that strength to propagate it, the activity it represents. And going back, Smoker does the same thing. Smoker even runs into given to Ace during the arc with Crocodile. They say where there's smoke, there's fire, but another reason for Smoker's devil fruit being smoke is that his personality exists in response to pirates. And the reason smoke is found with fire is because smoke's created by it. Smoker is somebody who saw the chaos of the new pirate era and was focused on containing it because his priorities were misplaced, not realizing the pirate era was in response to the status quo itself being a problem from the start. So instead of helping move the world forward, even though he has good intentions, he's just doing damage control from his limited perspective and holding people back. The smoke devil fruit represents the response to and persecution of consumption and rejection of the status quo, which Smoker both finds his strength in and then contributes to. Okay, with that formula down, speeding through these, next we've got the lightning fruit. This is Enel's. The guy loves lording any power he has over anyone and immediately smiting them and punching down if they try to stand up to him, while he pretends to be a deity in the heavens. Just like lightning, it's the fruit of immediately and intensely exploiting a power disparity over other people to stay above them and keep them down. Nami would supposedly get this fruit out of any of them, which also fits because she would be a good lightning Logia user, since she wants to have permanent power over people by getting them in debt and will jump at any opportunity to do so. If you're self-absorbed and can pass yourself off as better than other people by crushing them under your heel with no remorse, or at least with no consideration because your own goal is on your mind, then it's the fruit for you. Nami's a much better person though because she has a heart when she's serious about things. The ice fruit, okay, I talked about these in the Logia Awakening speculation video. Getting the Admirals over with first. Kuzan is too passive, so he gets the chill fruit. Sunglasses guy gets orders over with as fast as possible without thinking about them, so he gets the light fruit. Evil Jotaro guy uses authority as justification to satisfy his own feelings and let out his aggression, which is why he has the magma fruit. And because he's aggression backed by the status quo, he's able to overpower and burn the flame user. Ace is the quintessential pirate, and he gets the devil fruit that represents that, not the devil fruit that signifies that you have the freedom to survive being a pirate that lives for yourself, which is what Luffy has because it makes him more free by being flexible, which is how plants manage to grow through cracks in the sidewalk, or how life can find a way around rigid systems which it's fundamentally incompatible with. And when you awaken it, that devil fruit lets him turn the elements around him rubber too. The gum fruit is the counter to Logias. The flame fruit is just a rejection of them. So if you're just going to live recklessly on your own terms, you don't have that freedom the gum fruit provides, and you're going to be overpowered by that system. In order for the flame fruit to be fully taken advantage of, it would need to be given to a hero instead of a pirate. So somebody in the Revolutionary Army, which was what happened. It was given to Sabo. The Revolutionary Army are the people the Marines hate the most because they're the selfless ones who look past their own conflicts and misfortunes to set the world up so that the population will change it and make it a paradise where everyone can afford to be self-centered. And the next Logia user is another member of the Revolutionary Army, Karasu. We don't know much about him yet, but we could speculate on some details given the fruit that he has, because it's related to the flame fruit. Soot, like smoke, is a material produced by flames. It's the remnant of whatever was burned by them, and it can be toxic, like how people who have been burned or mistreated before could become bitter and harmful people themselves. But if the thing that was burned was organic, the soot produced could be nourishing for future plants and growth by enriching the earth. So let's take a look at Karasu as a character. He hasn't spoken much, and he uses gloomy and intimidating imagery since he makes birds out of his soot and wears a mask, but given that he's a high-ranking member, trusted by Dragon, he could be somebody who's been scarred and damaged, but is so pure of heart that it's motivated him to dedicate his life to help nourish and regrow the world. I feel like that's been the implication so far, which I think makes him pretty cool. We don't know if he would have been burned by piracy and he just saw the bigger picture instead of being like Smoker, or if he was burned by the status quo through the exploitation of a village or something like a Buster Call, or if the point of his character is completely different. He does not say much. Anyway, this brings us to Caribou. He's got the biggest mystery so far. He's kind of been a side character that's just tracked in places without anybody realizing, like the mud fruit that he's got, and his actions are endlessly deplorable. So maybe that's all there is to him. But then again, maybe Caribou is the secret big bad of the entire series, and it's his devil fruit sinking property that's causing every island around the world to sink. Obviously not, but this is the point with the Logias where the time skips happened and there's not as much to say about the users we meet. So I'm gonna say some more speculative stuff based on what the thoughts behind their designs could be, and then circle back to the guy I avoided talking about later. Caesar Clown! Honestly, there's a lot we don't know about his gas fruit. I read the comments on the Logia Awakenings video, and I don't think I explained it clearly because it was sort of half through text on the screen and half through audio in the video itself. But I have seen the theories. I do agree that Punk Hazard's biomes seem to have been caused by awakened Logias. It's just that I think there are other aspects to a Logia awakening beyond doing that, and Caesar Clown is foreshadowing for them. He's experimented on his own devil fruit and specializes in weakening devil fruit limiters. He improves Chopper's monster point, and he might even be the reason Sugar's hobby fruit is so overpowered. But that is just conjecture. I was saying that I thought an awakened Logia would remove the limiter that lets people reflexively turn into their elements, so they'd be able to augment matter with the concept of their element directly, whether this is the environment or their own body's transformation, giving them a form that's closer to Gear 5 or a chakra cloak. But because that limiter is now gone, if they're not manually holding themselves together, their body will fall apart. I think Caesar Clown is someone who's weakened his own limiter, so his clothing is always partially transformed. But if he wants to, then like a gas, he can loosely float around in his blobby form. The theme of the gas fruit could genuinely be bizarre chemicals. That seems scientific, so you don't think they're natural, but really are. They're just invisible. So he would be the arms manufacturer that then uses his position to do further research. But I'd like to think that it's really the air fruit or something, and people call it the gas fruit because oxygen is invisible and at high concentrations it becomes a poison. So it's only with a weakened limiter that Caesar Clown can easily turn his gas fruit into other types of invisible gas. Because it feels like, if these are the elements, a fully awakened Logia user should have more variety in these substances and objects made from that element that they can create. But that's also just conjecture. Monet, rest her horrible but hot bird soul. When it's cold, snow covers things and makes them colder. I imagine the idea is just that Monet's content doing whatever, but also making the world worse because she bonds with a fallen celestial dragon who has basically zero redeeming qualities, simply because? I don't know what to say about her. And this brings us to the Woods fruit. I also talked about that one in the Logia Awakenings video. I don't even know if it's a proper Logia, but it could be, because wood is a traditional element in some cosmologies. So if we assume that it counts, then it's just because that guy's a parasite and climbed to get a good position in the Marines because he wants to personally succeed, and this authority he's contributing to has provided him an opportunity to do that and thrive at the expense of all the people it crushes. You know who's in our blind spot? Blackbeard, with his dark fruit. He waits for opportunities to do things instead of proactively achieving goals. And then he gets people to underestimate him so he can keep finding more cracks in things to take advantage of. He even then gets a second devil fruit with the ability to make cracks in things to assist with that first one. So instead of just waiting for opportunities to present themselves and getting people to underestimate him for more of those opportunities to show up, he can go on the offensive and make them himself. And that wraps up the devil fruits. All right, let me show you my trip in Japan. Some more details of that. I went to IKEA. I went to a place that makes tea or something. Look at the nice environment outdoors. Honestly, it's kind of beautiful there, even when it rains, because everything just feels materially grounded, even when it's kind of run down. There's something nice and succinct about it, ignoring how the climate and weather can get. I went to the Capcom place, and I went to that One Piece cafe, which was really cool. At first, I ordered this curry dish, but then nothing happened. Got some drinks. I got a devil fruit, and I got Brooke's head, which had dry ice. The smoke was coming straight out of Brooke's head. I then ate his brains to gain his musical ability, and I think it worked. Would I go back to Japan? Yes, in a heartbeat, but it's expensive, and that is why I have a Patreon. Come on, guys, please, I'm desperate. I need the money. Please, I want to go back there. Those One Piece Crocs were $80. Also, on another note, every month, properly starting this month of May, I dedicate a lot of time to a monthly research project that the patrons vote on, or monthly research topic that the patrons decide. And this month, they decided they wanted me to try to learn how to make a fursona. It was between that or relearning particle physics, which I haven't gone over since I got really into quantum computing. computing for a brief stint half a decade ago, and now I can recall next to nothing from the whole thing, but it's increasingly relevant to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. They chose the persona creation option over that. So that's what I'm going to be doing over on the Patreon, making formulas for my thought process and approach to design. I looked into animal species yesterday, and I'm kind of leaning toward cat gecko because look at them, that's awesome, but I haven't fully figured out my design approach yet, so we're still in a phase where anything goes, and I've been consulting the patrons throughout the process. Side note, brief progress update, there are 8 aspects to design that I want to be able to consider all at the same time, so that the character feels complete. So call me Kaido because I'm kind of making a bagua to center my thoughts so I can come up with a process that accommodates all aspects of design at once, that I think are representative of my current understanding of a persona, but I might be going a little overboard? Anyway, if any of that is up your alley, please head over there, because that's not related to anime at all, so it's probably not gonna make it into a public channel video. They also asked me to look into World Trigger, so that is something I'll be doing too. At some point, look forward to that. Also, there was an extra part of the script that wasn't really adding anything, it was also conjecture, so that's also on the Patreon, in audio-only form. Oh, and for everyone who keeps asking what the songs are in the videos, I put them on there too! Come on! It's like the first link you see in the description. You get to listen to the awesome Wolf album with such classics as... or the Grim Reaper album with hits like... Come on, they're all the same Patreon tier. I don't have any others. If I did, they'd be absurdly high priced and offer next to nothing extra. Alright, I'm gonna go back to working on the next big JoJo video and browsing for affinity for hours at a time to see the ways in which people anthropomorphize species. This has been Blade of the Grass. Have fun.